here are our top stories. More than 20 Filipino seafarers scammed at Fiji. ITF reports. ICS launches trade study. POEA records show seafarer deployment down by 60% in 2020. Marino Party List pushes for a seafarer agency. BCG man receives IMO Bravery Award. And be captivated by the maritime vanguards as they celebrate JBLFMU 73rd Foundation Anniversary.
The International Transport Workers Federation, or ITF, reports that more than 20 Filipino seafarers are scammed by Gundar Shipping, a ferry company in Fiji. ITF Inspector Sara Magira says the workers are underpaid by as much as 70% of what the company promised them. With many of the seafarers unable to afford return tickets, they agreed to stay on with the company with fresh promises of repatriation following an additional year of work. But the company then said that flights and quarantine costs were too expensive due to COVID and refused to honor its obligations to get the weary seafarers home. The ITF has already called the Fijian government to intervene to suspend the company's license to operate until it settles all its outstanding obligations to its workers, including its responsibilities to arrange and pay for all flights home. 3 Filipino seafarers were left stranded in Fiji when the company allegedly terminated them after speaking to an ITF representative in Lautoka. According to their statement, on their return to the vessel on February 14, they were informed that the consent of the captain for them to leave the vessel on February 12 had been withdrawn, and so their contract were terminated. The seafarers and their belongings were abandoned late at night with no access to food, accommodation, nor transport to take them to Suva, Fiji's capital city.
Marino Party List Representative Sandro Gonzalez and Macnello Sotan have filed House Bill 8690, establishing the Maritime Workers and Seafarers Administration, or MARIWASA. The bill says MARIWASA shall be attached to the Department of Labor and Employment, responsible for ensuring that Filipino seafarers and maritime workers are globally preferred and that domestic and maritime workers are globally competitive through an effective, integrated, simplified, and seamless system of education, training, certification, and licensing. Likewise, it shall be the primary agency responsible for implementing international conventions, instruments, laws, policies, rules, and regulations. The administration shall also be responsible for promoting the welfare of maritime workers and seafarers before, during, and after their employment, and ensuring their proper and effective reintegration into the mainstream society. Last year, President Rodrigo Duterte said he was eyeing the creation of a separate agency to address the Filipino seafarers' welfare, and because of the so many international laws involved in maritime.
The Association of Licensed Banning Agencies, or ALMA Maritime Group, reacts on the House resolution seeking to create a task force responsible for conducting search and rescue operations during sea mishaps occurring in territorial waters, foreign waters, and the open sea. The House Resolution number 1344 was filed by Marino Party List Representative Macnel Lusotan and TUCB Party List Representative Raymond Democrito Mendoza in response to the sinking last year of Panamanian livestock carrier Gulf Livestock One, where 36 Filipino crew went missing. In its letter to the congressman, ALMA clarifies that under the concept of territorial jurisdiction, if the vessel is in the territory of foreign state, Filipino authorities cannot enforce Philippine jurisdiction, lest the sovereignty of the former is encroached upon. The resolution also aims to ensure that the families of surviving, missing, or dead Filipino crew members will receive appropriate government assistance and legal claims from private entities. The group, however, says under the Philippine labor law, when a seafarer is merely missing, there's no right to claim such benefits, yet subject to the doctrine of presumptive death. Under the Civil Code of the Philippines, whereby the waiting period before a person is presumed dead is 4 years. If the case is outside the perilous scenarios contemplated, the applicable waiting period is 7 years. But according to ALMA, there are instances wherein the employer forgoes the waiting period and forthwith compensates the heirs of the missing seafarer. This practice is, however, discretionary on the part of the employer.
The Maritime Industry Authority, or MARINA, holds an interagency right shop on pre-audit questionnaire PAQ via video conference to update and finalize the country's compliance document to the IMO Member State Audit Scheme, or IMSAS. The PAQ is one of the mandatory requirements for the IMSAS and is considered as a member state's first line of defense for the mandatory audit, as it will form part of the audit team's strategic planning before subjecting it to external scrutiny. The finalized PAQ will be submitted to the International Maritime Organization 2 months after the conclusion of the Memorandum of Cooperation between the IMO Secretary General and Secretary of Transportation scheduled in April 2021. Participants of the right shop include representatives from the Marina, Philippine Coast Guard, Philippine Ports Authority, Cebu Port Authority, Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, National Mapping and Resource Information Authority, National Telecommunications Commission, and Philippine Atmospheric Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration. IMSAS commenced as a voluntary scheme in 2006 and became a treaty obligation in January 2016. It aims to promote the consistent and effective implementation of applicable IMO instruments and to assist member states to improve their capabilities while contributing to the enhancement of global individual member states' overall performance in compliance with the requirements of the instruments to which it is a party.
The International Chamber of Shipping, or ICS, has officially launched its Global Trade Study. ICS Trade Protectionism in Maritime Economy study outlines the protectionist trade policies being implemented by governments worldwide. It demonstrates that if countries cut restrictive maritime trade policies, it could help boost GDP by as much as 3.4% for national economies. The study shows how each of the 58 countries analyzed can identify and reduce its restrictive measures to lower the cost of doing business and increase its share in global maritime trade, which was estimated at $14 trillion in 2019. This includes both tariff and non-tariff restrictions, such as anti-competitive licensing laws and discriminatory treatment of foreign companies, found to be up to 5 times worse than tariffs themselves. 4 scenarios are provided for potential policy reform, demonstrating real GDP gains for national economies if trade restrictive measures are reduced. It is hoped governments will use the study to better navigate the economic impact of COVID-19, which is being compounded by the knock-on effects of growing trade protectionism and inward-looking policies.
Countries' economies are under threat. restrictive customs laws, import and export restrictions, and tariffs on trade are making it more difficult for economies to recover from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to a WTO report published in November 2020, $1.7 trillion of world imports have been affected by constraints like these since 2009. Our Prime Index shows how different types of trade restrictions have an impact on a country's ability to generate wealth, and is a powerful tool for governments to increase prosperity. This level of restriction is not sustainable for a post-pandemic world. Shipping is one of the biggest generators of global prosperity, representing $14 trillion of trade. It is vital that maritime trade keeps flowing, as 90% of all goods are transported by sea. Reducing national trade restrictions ensures that industries like shipping can continue to bring wealth, growth, and economic prosperity to countries around the world. If members of a trade bloc like ASEAN were to halve their current trade restrictions, economies in the bloc would see GDP increase on average by 1.8%. The same reduction in trade barriers for both members of the African Union and Mercosur would see an average GDP increase of nearly 1%. This not only increases countries' individual prosperity, but paves the way for more connected international trade, benefiting each and every one of us. At a time of global challenge, now is the time to reform for the future.
Up next, seafarer deployment down by 60%. PCG man receives IMO Bravery Award. And be captivated by the maritime vanguards as they celebrate JBLFMU 73rd Foundation Anniversary.
Connected islands, safe travels, easy transport, convenient journeys, great destinations. Bridging the Philippine Islands seamlessly, turning them into one. Visit fastcat.com.ph.
The Baltic and International Maritime Council, or BIMCO, and International Chamber of Shipping, or ICS, will release this year the latest Seafarer Workforce Report. The report will feature detailed estimates of the current supply and demand for seafarers for the world fleet, including country-specific figures, forward projections for the likely supplies and demand situations in the next decade, and identification of various maritime training, recruitment, and retention trends and their potential consequences. ICS Secretary General Guy Platin underscores with the challenges and changes wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic, decarbonization, and rapid technological developments, ship operators now more than ever need a management tool. Meanwhile, BIMCO Secretary General David Goosby says the report will help provide answers to where the shipping world is heading and what new crewing initiatives might be required. The Seafarer Workforce Report is previously known as the Manpower Report. In 2015, BIMCO ICS Manpower Report, it was projected that there will be a need for an additional 147,500 officers by 2025 to service the world merchant fleet.
Crystal Cruises now requires all its guests to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 at least 14 days prior boarding any Crystal ship. The company says guests must provide proof of vaccination before embarkation, in addition to the existing Crystal Clean Plus 4.0 measures, including negative COVID-19 tests and health screening questionnaires. Crystal has voluntarily paused operations through May 2021 for their river fleet, with cancellations into June for their ocean ships, through August 1 for Crystal Esprit, and through August for Crystal Endeavor. The management is confident that its timeline for returning to cruising this summer will allow guests sufficient time to get fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, crew members are required to be tested for COVID-19 prior to leaving their home location to join the ship and must receive a negative result. They also will take a COVID-19 test at embarkation, quarantine for 7 days upon arrival, and take a test at the end of the 7-day period and must receive a negative result before beginning their duties. When vaccines are widely available, the COVID-19 vaccination will be a requirement of employment at least 14 days prior to service.
The Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or POEA, reports a 60% decrease on deployment of seafarers last year compared to 2019. According to POEA database, there were 217,241 sea-based workers deployed in January to December 2020, a decrease of 301,278 compared with the deployment of 518,519 in January to December 2019. Cruise shipping, the hardest hit industry by the COVID-19 pandemic, is a major employer of the Philippine sea-based workforce. However, POEA records already show in January 2020, 32,317 were deployed, a 30% lower than 46,743 deployed in January 2019. In February 2020, the number of rehired seafarers deployed reached 30,693, still lower than February 2019's record of 39,515. This was further reduced in March with only 16,161 rehired sea-based workers deployed abroad, a figure 64% lower than March 2019's 44,854. The Maritime Industry Authority estimates around 100,000 ships carry almost 95% of the world trade, operated by close to 1.5 million seafarers, 378,000 of which are Filipinos.
Philippine Coast Guard Ensign Ralph Marahan formally received the International Maritime Organization or IMO Award for exceptional bravery at sea. The awarding ceremony was held at the Department of Foreign Affairs office in Pasay City on February 24. If not with the COVID-19 pandemic, the awarding was supposed to be held at the IMO headquarters in London, United Kingdom. Barahan was the off-duty Coast Guardian who ensured the safety of 62 lives, including his own, aboard ill-fated passenger vessel in MV Siargao Princess in the waters of Cebu on November 7, 2019. After calling the Coast Guard to request immediate assistance, Petty Officer Barahan took charge of the situation and provided assistance and instructions to both passengers and crew members to grab the life jackets, transfer to the other side of the ship, and prepare for evacuation. After he calmly but firmly persuaded the captain to declare the abandoned ship call, he assisted all passengers to jump off the vessel, making sure that no one was left behind. The Siargao Princess sank less than 10 minutes later. While floating on the water, Barahan tied the life jackets of passengers and crew members in groups for their own safety and to facilitate the search and rescue operations by the Coast Guard, who arrived more than an hour later.
The Department of Transportation and its attached agency, the Philippine Ports Authority, have completed 416 ports projects across the country since 2016. 104 more are ongoing, 58 are in the pipeline. Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade underscores the government's aim to further boost maritime connectivity and mobility all over the country. He says the government continues to work non-stop to realize all the much-needed infrastructure projects of the country. Tugade, Public Works and Highway Secretary Mark Villar, and Basis Conversion and Development Authority President Vivencio Dizon held a virtual joint meeting last February 18 as part of the Rating and Investment Information Annual Rating Review. The three officials discussed their agency's various projects, programs, and initiatives under the Build program. Other maritime projects in the offing are the new Cebu International Container Port and the Pag-asa Island Sheltered Port Project Phase 1.
The Philippine Ports Authority or PPA issues Memorandum Circular Number 03-2021 containing the guidelines on the refund of dockage and layup fees. This is in relation to the provision of financial assistance to critically impacted maritime sector due to the COVID-19 pandemic. With this, the agency shall provide refund for dockage and layup fees paid by qualified domestic shipping companies or operators incurred from December 1, 2020 to January 28, 2021. Filing shall be made by the shipping companies not later than March 15, 2021. Requirements for the refund include letter request of the shipping company or operator addressed to the concerned port manager, copies of PPA official receipt, computation sheet, invoices, and other related supporting documents, and the summary list of payments to PPA showing the total amount of claim to be refunded. Provision of financial assistance to critically impacted maritime sector is stipulated in Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, or known as Bayanihan Act 2.
Subic Bay International Terminal Corporation or SBITC has been endorsed by the Department of Agriculture as a discharge port for containers of imported livestock and raw materials. Signed by DA Undersecretary for Consumer Affairs Ernesto Gonzalez, the endorsement highlights the terminal's role in ensuring unimpeded trade for the livestock and feed milling industries. It is also seen as an encouragement for importers to use the Subic Container Port to have feeds more readily available and affordable to farmers, leading to potentially lower market prices of beef products in the Greater Manila area and nearby provinces. The endorsement says, given the initiatives of the current administration to support a affordable and accessible food for the Filipino people, industry players should be able to tap services which are competitive and will provide access where Filipino consumers demand products. Roberto Locsin, SBITC General Manager, says compared to other ports, they're offering lower port fees and up to 10 days of free storage for their partners.
The Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA Manila, and the Association of Technical Schools in Manila, or ATSME, jointly extend help to the victims of fire that recently broke out in Parola, Tondo, Manila. TESDA Manila Director Maria Lourdes Ople Villanueva and ATSME President Glenn Mark Blasquez led the distribution of bags of groceries to hundreds of fire victims temporarily relocated at Jose Abad Santos High School and P. Guevara Elementary School. Together with other officers and staff, TESDA and ATSME also extended skills and learning assistance to the victims. Senator Bongo, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, and Vice Mayor Honey Lacuna were also there to extend help. 300 houses were destroyed, some 600 families were rendered homeless, and 5 people died in the fire.
True to its brand as the maritime vanguard, no pandemic has stopped the Lacsonians from celebrating John B. Lacson Maritime University's 73rd foundation anniversary. An impressive virtual opening ceremony was produced by the cadets with stock footages taken from the previous celebrations. JBL-FMU CEO Ronald Sebastian expounds on the anniversary's theme, JBL-FMU, a beacon of excellence in maritime education in the new normal, as a testament to its vision of being globally leading institution, a pandemic notwithstanding. He says JBL-FMU has the capacity for both modular and online classes which make them survive and thrive in this new era. Via virtual platform, the management, administration, staff, members of the academy, and students participated in the different activities such as digital poster making, e-games, research colloquium, and sharing of best practices, academic contest, and peer facilitator conference. A maritime conference via Zoom was also graced by officials from the government, Congress, NGOs, and JBL-FMU alumni. But what really stood out are the unwavering messages from the Lacsonians.
My last memory of being in school with my friends and classmates was last March 2020. With the fast emergence of the coronavirus that time, we knew that there are drastic changes that are about to happen.
Few months after, we found ourselves under quarantine, following strict protocols to conform to what they call a new normal.
This current situation we are in right now is taking a toll, especially in both sides of the teachers and students. To what measures we should do in order to cope with a new type of learning.
But I believe
We believe
that no matter what challenges these overgrown waves of life may give us,
the maritime vanguard will stand firm and steadfast with its mission, vision, and values.
As Lacsonians, we're resilient enough in finding new ways to learn.
John B. reminds us that to whatever seas we venture,
whatever trials we face,
Whatever medium of education,
Our learning will never stop.
As long as we're persevering and determined enough to find means to learn,
our hard work will pay off. Our resiliency prevails.
I am
A Lacsonian,
ready to find new ways.
ready to learn.
ready for a new normal.
insight on maritime viewpoints. IMEX CEO Francesco Gargiulo will join us from UK. Stay tuned on Marine World Online. I am Lynn Bacani.
And those are the maritime news and views here and abroad. I am Jel Miranda.
See you again next Saturday, 6 p.m. I'm Oning Miranda, and this is
Marine World Weekend.